Hello, welcome back to the last part of the pixel theory, part number 3. So now I'm just gonna give you a couple of facts of the things that I have discovered, and I'm gonna show you some pictures where you can see these patterns in nature, and then I'm just gonna come to the conclusion of what my personal point of view is, what is the reason why we're living in this construct, the matrix, or however you want to call it, and the way how you can break free from the confinements, because I think there's not even a need to break out of the matrix, because we have created the matrix for ourselves, but it's important to understand that we are living in it, and why we have created it, and how we can transcend to become more in connection again with the bigger spiral or with God, or however you want to call it. So yes, let's come to the part number 3. Okay, so here you can see, I will remove my image eventually if you need to see the pictures, but right now I'm staying here in the corner. So pixel theory, part number 3. First thing, it's called simulation hypothesis. So you can see here. When I say the world is an illusion, I don't mean it doesn't exist at all, or that our life doesn't mean anything. It's definitely real, only the way we see it is quite different from its true form. So there's Donald Hoffman, who suggests that we are living in a simulation similar to the artificially created video game GTA. Our bodies are characters interacting in an artificial world with each other. This is our reality. But we are actually played by something that we as simple in-the-game characters can't even imagine. I really like his comparison to a desktop. See our reality as the desktop interface of a computer. So you have here this image of the very old school desktop. That basically means you're seeing these things that are happening here. But now if I go further, so the desktop is not at all what the real insides of a computer look like. The reality would be circuit boards that are transferring voltages into states of 1 and 0. So the electricity running around in here in these motherboards, that is the real reality of the computer, not something that looks like this. But because it would take us forever to write an email when we would have to be aware of every bit that gets changed around when we use a PC, we have created a desktop to be able to interact in a more effective, easy and fast way. Like this, you can write a message but have no idea what happens in the background of your computer. For example, on a computer you have the icon of the folders and files. The icon of the folder is blue and rectangular, but that doesn't mean that there's a blue and rectangular file inside the computer itself. It's simply a representation to be able to interact more easily with the environment. As the file, our body is not real, but a representation of ourselves to be able to maneuver and interact inside this world, space and time. Our reality is built similar, but even if we shouldn't see our reality as literal, we should still take it seriously. In the same way as dragging a file into the trash will delete the file from the computer, if we damage our body in physical reality, we will still die. In the end of the talk, he takes a funny joke on death though. He says that death is not the end, it's only taking off the VR headset. So see yourself as the player that is sitting behind this computer and guiding all the strings, pulling all the strings to make things happen. But when you're dying, then the computer is off, so nothing here is happening, but you just go and do your things away from the computer. That means that you took off your headset and you continue with the other life that you're living, but you're not in this game. And so I believe it is true that when we die here, our soul doesn't die forever. It will just take out the player from the video game, so our character is gone, but the one that played will never go. Yes. There are many proofs already that reality doesn't behave the same way when it's being observed or not. The double-slit experiment, which proved that particles, when being observed, behave as particles, but when they are not observed, they behave as waves. Here you have this image. They were sending some laser beams through a wall with 2 holes inside, and that split the beam. And then basically when somebody was observing what is happening was watching each particle going through the two holes. The both particles arrived in a different place of the wall, but then when you didn't place an observer there, it was that the particles would either go there or there, but eventually it looked like on the screen as if they would have went through both in the same time, which is impossible if they are just particles, but it is possible if they behave as waves and they are bouncing back and forth, and then they created this interference pattern. I left some description about this in the source, so if you're interested to understand this experiment a little bit better, then follow the link in the source. So the same way a computer or PlayStation renders only the content that you're seeing with the eyes of your player when you're in the game, everything else exists only as bits of information and memory of your game. Because it would be too complicated to constantly render everything all the time, it only has to create the objects that are visible around you. The rest exists just as code, or in our case as form of waves. So the same way when you're watching something, it is the form of of particles, you can see it and touch it, but when you're not watching, it kind of exists only in the form of a wave. And the same on the computer, when you are watching somewhere, it gets rendered and you see it very clearly with color and shape, but if you're not watching there, it just exists as code of ones and zeros in the computer, and when you watch, then it will start to get rendered and you see it properly, but before it just exists as code. Now some fun facts. Another fact that I have learned recently is that if you look up the definition of the word matrix, it means womb or grid of information. This really gave me goosebumps, as I didn't know that before, but now I perfectly understand why. The matrix that we're living in is like a grid of information, and you feel like a baby inside the womb perceiving this information constantly. So like the description I gave before on my trip of LSD, how I'm like a baby in the womb and I'm spinning through the grid of the information. And so this is actually the definition. I didn't know it earlier, but now I know why they call it matrix. And then another fact is there is one creator being, God. All of us are this being. It's like an eye or Ouroboros. Ouroboros is the snake that is eating its own tail. So it's going constantly around itself and seeing itself from the back, or eating itself from the back. Or the Taurus, which I described you. And the third one is we rarely recognize that we are inside of it, but one example that almost everyone that I know has already experienced is the feeling of laying drunk in bed. Have you ever come home from a party with a lot of alcohol, lay down in your bed, closed your eyes, and you started to spin? This sensation was something so strong for me that I had to open my eyes again or I would throw up. Ordinary science says that alcohol affects the liquid in your ears that keeps your balance, and so you feel disoriented when you are very drunk. But personally, I believe now that the alcohol is also lowering your boundaries to perceive more information of this grid, which makes you more perceptive. Then, when you take your time and stay quiet, with your mind focusing not on the outer distractions, but only on you and your inner thoughts when you try to sleep, you get pulled into the spiral that exists in everyone and everything and try to become part of it. This is the thing that makes you dizzy, and many people will throw up because of it. So I think many people have had this experience. I had it many times, and now I have had it more intense on other psychedelics. But I believe that when you drink alcohol, you first don't recognize it because you're out talking to people, dancing or doing whatever when you're drunk. And then once you just lay down and you focus, you kind of do a little meditation before you go to sleep. And this will make you aware of the fact that you're constantly spinning through this matrix, like I described in my trips. You're spinning, but because you're not accustomed to it and you don't know what's happening, it usually makes you very dizzy, and then most of the people I know, they just have to throw up after. Okay, next fact. In meditation, I realized how everything in existence is frequency. Your note and octave are your reality. So from the moment you get born, you are locked and added into the endless spiral of existence. This moment you exist in is your frequency and makes you who you are. Like this, you become a small part of a giant spiral system with many other consciousnesses. So you can imagine reality as a torus spinning around itself and spinning in a spiral until it comes back to the center. And you are a part of this spin, but there's many little fractals that are spiraling off, and eventually when you get born, you are locked in this part of the spiral as this little fractal. I showed it here that you can see this blue stripe here, or that black one there, as you, as soon as you're born, and then you follow the spiral with everybody else in the universe until here the center, and then eventually you die, and once you die, the things that you perceived are all stored inside here, and then you become part of the whole spiral again, which will be everything, so you don't really die, but you just reunite with everything that ever was, and then eventually you can enter into a new form or body. Can be a human, an animal, a plant, or whatever. Maybe I can't even imagine what it all can be, but you just entered into a new consciousness, and then you follow the spiral again and perceive things until you die and you get out, and then you become part of everything again. Same way here I showed it, that imagine there's different frequencies, and so this is you in your frequency, and everything that goes along here is part of your experience, but there might be many other frequencies that are different from yours, and they're just standing next to you, but you don't even recognize them because they're swinging on a different frequency rate, so you don't even see it, but it's happening all in the same time. Then I show you some images of the pattern. So once you start to pay attention to the grid pattern, you will see it everywhere in the nature. Here you can see it, for example, in the feathers of a peacock. So here are the things that even look like eyes, which I find very fascinating because I'm seeing these eyes also in my trips. And it has the same structure as I tried to describe you before, that it goes like a grid. So it's spiraling out in this direction and in this direction. And technically you can make a cube of 9 eyes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Here 9 or 8 around and 1 in the middle. And you can make it bigger and make another cube around that. So it's following the same pattern, and the peacocks are growing this naturally, which is very beautiful. I show you more examples now. I put myself here in the middle so you can see better. So here on the top left you have a sea urchin, which usually they have their eye here in the middle when they're still alive. This one is dead and dried out now. But here you can see the way how it grew, and it was flowing out like a torus and coming back on the top again, just in the torus shape. Then you have here the nest of the bees, and they are building the houses where the honey is then collected in the hexagonal shape. So it's exactly, if you would see it 3-dimensional, like there would be many cubes next to each other, and it looks just like the grid that I was perceiving when I was in my trip. It's all these hexagonal like cubes next to each other, and I mean now you see just 2-dimensional as hexagons, but you could imagine that they would be all cubes. And then the same of the octopus, how it's spinning when it's like the arm is twisting, like the spiral of a galaxy or so many other things, the spiral of a vortex. Even when you flush your toilet, you probably see this spiral because it's everywhere in nature, and even in octopuses it grows. And then you can see here the fly, and you see how they are also following the same structure. So you could go here along to the left out like a spiral, or go along to the right. So once you start to pay attention, you realize that this grid is forming on, I think, every animal, because every animal is part of it. Some show it more beautiful, some show it not so obviously, but it's part everywhere, part in everything. Okay. Then even those pictures I took myself on the terrace. So these were plants that are growing on my terrace, and when they are starting to build up, they're just making this kind of Fibonacci sequence. So they will grow just 1 and 1 next to each other, and then they make another 2, and then they will become 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, and they will spiral outwards, making this beautiful shape of the flower. And you can really see it everywhere, like here or even there on the top. It is very small, but it's starting already to follow exactly this pattern of the spiral going outwards, the golden ratio or Fibonacci sequence. And then this plant I found also very interesting because it had 3 leaves, and each leaf had a little line in the middle of them, which were exactly pointing in those three directions, like up, then you can imagine up and then down here, and then back and front here, and left and right here. And they had then there were 3 leaves and they had 6 petals, so it was just like the shape of the flower of life growing out. When you make the circle in the middle and then the 6 circles around, you would end up with exactly 6 petals of the flower. So this flower, or the plant, was even showing exactly the flower of life in itself. And then for me, I always also saw the cube in there, because you can imagine now you have the 3 lines here that would make that triangle if you just connect it. You can imagine this infinite cube with the red, green, and blue that I showed you in the second presentation, where you have the center point here in the middle and everything is trying to spiral towards this center point in the middle. Then you have here a flower on the left and then a pine cone on the right, and they are following exactly the same spiral. So you can see it starts here from the middle and it starts to spiral outwardly. I think also in the golden ratio. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure that it is. And the pine cone does exactly the same. So they start from this very, very small point in the middle. It can't be infinite because it's in 3-dimensional space. So they have to start the same way how the Fibonacci sequence works, that they are going 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, and they're gonna continue to spiral outward until the furthest point that they reach. And then from there on, eventually they start to spiral inward again until the top in the middle. And then you have a torus following the spiral until it reaches back to its center point. Here are other depictions of the spiral. So you can really see it everywhere in nature. You see it in a galaxy, like here on the top, or you can see the spiral in a sunflower. You can see how the plants are growing along this spiral and putting their leaves also in a Fibonacci way. This spiral happens in the vortex of a tornado. You can see it spiraling, or it can also be underwater, the same thing happening. Then you see it in something that looks a little bit like a aloe vera, I'm not sure. But it's also a plant and it's growing exactly in the spiral, and then even in animals. So this is a nautilus shell from slug that is growing exactly those, and it's starting really out like the golden ratio, but because it's not infinite, it has to follow the Fibonacci sequence. But eventually, when it reaches a size like this, it is so close to the golden ratio that there's almost no difference to see anymore. And then it's spinning just like the golden ratio outside, bigger and bigger and bigger. But of course, as it's an animal and it's 3-dimensional, it has only energy to grow it until a certain point, and then it cannot grow it bigger because it's, I think, lacking energy. But if you have a being like the universe that is infinite in energy, you can have this spiral going out infinitely forever. Okay, now I have to move myself again. I hope. This last image is a perfect example of the way water behaves when it freezes. This effect has been studied by a scientist called Masaru Emoto and gave incredible insights into the connection of consciousness and physical objects. So you can see here how water is freezing on a glass and it becomes ice. And those ice crystals will follow the same structure of the grid that I have been describing you. So once the water becomes from the wavy form to a hard crystalline structure, it will also become like a cube, or if you view it from the other position, it will be a hexagon. And I think everybody knows this picture of a snowflake, and it's exactly a 6-pointed star, or it can be also seen as an hexagon. And Masaru Emoto and the water crystals. So the Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto in 1994 took tap water from Japan, froze a few drops, examined them under an electron microscope, and photographed them. He then froze each of the samples, and what he discovered was astonishing. Some of the water samples would form beautiful hexagonal crystals, while others would become a completely disordered and chaotic form. So here you have this structure of the crystal that the water, when it was frozen, started to form, and it was exactly a 6-pointed star, kind of like the star tetrahedron. Or you can even see inside here this hexagon how it would be a 2-dimensional representation of a cube. The water that came from the tap or rivers next to big cities formed very chaotic crystals. Here you have this chaotic image of a crystal when the water wasn't in a good structure, it wasn't put into good consciousness. But the water that came from natural rivers and clean lakes had beautiful shaped crystals, something like this, where you can even see how it forms a cube and then it has smaller cubes around it and then even smaller ones, so it starts to fractal down in this same hexagonal way of the grid of the universe. Later he continued to make tests with the water and began to label the samples with positive and negative words. The ones who got the positive word started to build nice crystals and the other ones didn't. He tried many different ways, speaking to the water, labeling it, or praying for it, and the outcome always showed that the water with the positive affirmations made beautiful ice crystals, while the water that was ignored or even insulted would not form any kind of crystal shape. Here you have those images as an example. I will remove myself here so you can see it better. So here the word thank you, a beautiful crystalline structure, wisdom, truth, eternal, all building beautiful hexagons or six-pointed stars. Angel, very abstract, but also a form. I love you, peace, and then it starts, you fool. You don't almost see any structure anymore. You make me sick. It's just completely distorted. Nobody knows that it could have been also a beautiful crystal. Evil, or here you have polluted water before the prayer, and then I remember that they were asking a priest to pray on a whole river. So they were taking the sample from the river before it was prayed on, and it was just completely chaotic. And then after they prayed for the river to be good, to be healthy again, what happened was the water became to a nice, beautiful structure. So this shows how our intention can have influence on our surrounding. If we tell things that we love them, they might become a beautiful crystalline structure. If we tell them that we hate them, they might become really disorientated and become completely chaotic structure. Then here's a quote from Masaru Emoto. Through his research, it was revealed that water not only collects information, but is also sensitive to feelings and consciousness. This experiment shows how our consciousness can influence physical things even when we're just thinking about them. It's a proof of everything being pure vibration, even thought, that can influence other things through a change of frequencies. If we now remember that our body is also made out of 70% water, we start to realize what impact our words and thoughts might have on our surrounding. When you are constantly called an idiot, you certainly won't feel very good, and your physical body as well as your mind will suffer. But if you are treated with love, peace, and happiness, you will feel the positive vibration throughout your whole system. This shows how important it is to treat our surroundings with kindness and love, and to be aware that even the things we say and even the things we think might have a big influence on other people and our surroundings. Now to talk about the ego. Maybe I move myself over there again. Somewhere here. So, info about the ego. The ego is the sense of self that we are given the moment we come into this world. It helps to guide us through this experience of life by analyzing, categorizing, and organizing every sensation that we are being exposed to. By the time we are able to talk, we already have a strong understanding of what we are and what we are not. We are the body. We are not the chair, for example. And we learn how to interact with the outer world. The ego is usually filtering and interpreting our perception of reality. It tries to maintain order and regularity in order to help us guide our beings through this 3D space-time and keep us alive. Psychedelics partly remove this filter, so they take down the walls that you have built up over the time of your life, and they take them completely down so you have a pure experience of what reality really is. The stronger the dose, the more of the filter gets removed, even until a point that is called ego death. When you reach this point, you stop to identify with materialistic things and will start to realize that you are not the body or the mind. You are everything that exists, and simply have created a boundary between yourself to be able to experience something. Because as long as you are everything, you can't have any subjective experience of anything. This state will slowly go away as the substance leaves your body, and you start to feel more connected to your body and mind again. But the experience of being all that is stays. This can be also achieved within deep meditation and is called samadhi. The thing that the Buddha reached, the enlightened one, as soon as you connect fully and completely to the other side, that is everything, and you take down your ego, you will have this experience of there is no you, there is no separation between you and the outer world, because you are the outer world, you are everything. The only thing that you did was to separate yourself from it in this illusion to be able to perceive this world, because otherwise, if you are one, like there's only one thing, there's nothing to see, there's nothing to touch, but as soon as you separate, you have another thing to see, another thing to touch. So that's why we created the ego. Okay, let me remove myself up here. Yes. Balance. Everything can be tracked back to ones and zeros. The duality of this world, which appeared when the universal consciousness split itself into two and led to the creation of positive and negative, is ultimately the same principle that our current computers are based on, and can be seen as a binary code from which everything else arises. It's 1 and 0, on and off, positive and negative, black and white, yin and yang, male and female, good and bad. And there are many million more examples I could give, but these are just some of them, and I think you all know about them. So the most important thing that I have learned in my ayahuasca journey was that the key is balance, which is the same teaching that we get from Buddhist and Hinduist religion. Like a light switch that is neither on nor off, but exactly in the middle, which you almost can never find, because I don't know if you have ever tried this as a kid, but I tried a lot to balance the light switch just in the middle, but it's either on or off. There's no exact in the middle. So the key is to find this exact balance in the middle, and then you will go into this other realm. You will connect to the one creator, to God, because you're not choosing to be either this side or this side. You're uniting yourself to be just one and nothing else. You have to rest your mind in a state of absolute stillness, not judging or categorizing any thought that arises in your mind. Because even thoughts are waves of energy that bounce back and forth from positive to negative. Like you can see here in this image, so your thought might be a wave of energy that goes down as a negative and up as a positive, and it will always swing along this line. So here I showed even this image, that you start your thought and then it starts to swing, and it swings up and down and up and down, and whatever you're thinking, all your thoughts create waves of energy that will eventually always keep on swinging. And even as small as you try to swing here, as long as the wave is still sent out and it's swinging, there will be this constant change between positive and negative, positive and negative. So no matter how much closer you get to the 0 point, you will always be able to divide the wave in half again and be closer to 0. So you half it, you're a little bit closer but not there. You half it again, you're closer but not there. And this will go on forever. So what you actually have to do to stop thinking and connect with the next higher level of consciousness is to completely let go of thought. Stop judging and categorizing and just observe. It's active non-doing, something that the Buddhists explain a lot about. So you're just trying to watch who is thinking, but you are not this one that is thinking, and you're just perceiving, you're not sending anything out, because as soon as you start to send thoughts or things out, you will create those waves again. When you're able to find the balance of neither choosing positive nor negative, you can connect to divine infinite universal consciousness or God. Okay, I move myself a little bit down here. Yes. Then there's this research from a CIA document, which also relates to what I tried to explain here right now with letting completely go of thought and then entering into this other dimension. The document was mainly focused to try to understand how you can have out-of-body experiences and it was about remote viewing, which is basically going into the state of meditation and then leaving your body to explore your surrounding. And I guess the CIA wanted to use it to spy on people. That's why they made this extensive research, but they found out very interesting things. So this document released from the CIA contains most of its research from a book called Stalking the White Pendulum by Isaac Benthoff. But the agent from the CIA who made this research also put a lot of his own discoveries inside of it. It's hard to cover the entirety of this document, which is very worth reading on its own. So I will leave the link in the sources. If you're interested, you can either read the document itself, it's not that long, or you can also try to watch YouTube videos, because it's sometimes a little bit complicated to understand. So there are people who made YouTube videos about it and are explaining the way how it works with leaving the body, and then how you can train to bring your brain waves into a certain frequency to be able to do this remote viewing. So here I just put now a little conclusion of this whole document in a very quick way, trying to make it as simple as possible for you, just to get the understanding that it's kind of the same what I was telling you right now about with the thought. The universe, space, and time is described as energy in motion. If there is no confinement, space, there can't be any movement, as there is nothing to move relative to infinity. So if you have just one thing and there is nothing to move relative towards this thing, then wherever you go, you don't know if you're even moving. But once you put something relative to it, you know if you're moving up, down, left, right, and so on. So this would be, if you're just one, you're in infinite space, because you don't have anything to move to. So there needs to be a confined space to be able to move towards or away from objects. So the one started to project itself out, and then it made this confined space. So now it was like in a box or in a sphere, and it could move from the sphere towards it, away from it, up and down. So it had created this confinement. The speed of this movement could be seen as time. Energy that is not defined by space is not moving and can therefore be seen as energy at rest. The non-moving energy is called the absolute, or you could also see this absolute, the energy at rest, as God, because the energy that is moving not relative to anything else, so you don't even know if you're moving, so you're basically all the time still, and this is what they call the absolute. Building up from this are infinitely many layers of frequency, which our reality is only a little part of. So the one started to send out waves, energy waves, but as long as it wasn't arriving anywhere, it was not even in motion. So what it had to do, it had to send the energy waves from itself out and come back to itself. And as soon as it started to perceive it, once it started to see the waves that it had sent out, it had this confinement, so now it was moving towards something or relative to itself. And then the waves that it has sent out are in different frequencies, and each of the frequency that the wave is vibrating in is another layer of reality. And then you might exist just in this layer of reality because you're in this frequency, but there are many other ones over and under you as well. So it can be seen as this picture as well. The absolute is conscious energy in infinity. It occupies every dimension, including our physical one, but we usually can't perceive it. But there is a way to tap into this infinite energy by focusing with a certain intensity, so that our brainwave frequency, if displayed on an oscillator, would move so fast back and forth to almost look like a straight line. When the oscillating brainwaves reach towards their end to make a turn and switch in polarity, they are for a very short moment in complete rest. So when your brainwave frequency displayed on the oscillator makes this move to go down here, and then it starts to change back up exactly at this moment here, where it starts to change from up and down or down and up, it is in a moment of complete rest, because it has to, like when you shoot up a ball, in one moment the ball is completely still, and then it starts to fall down again. It will do exactly the same here, and then once it starts to change here again. This moment in time, our consciousness, because it's not moving, clicks out of this space-time and becomes part of the infinite absolute. According to the paper, this step out of time-space happens when the wave frequency drops below 10 to the 33 centimeters, also known as the Planck distance, which is the smallest measurable distance that I tried to explain you before already. By making our brain waves oscillate so fast that the distance between those click-out moments becomes so small that they are creating a continuity. We create the possibility to start analyzing the quick moment before moving into and out of the complete rest. Thus, we are able to observe another dimensional layer not confined by the boundaries of space and time. So you have here this image, which I think describes it quite well. So you can imagine this wave is your brain wave oscillating back and forth, like up and down between positive and negative. And then there's a moment when you start to reach that top, and then you start to drop down again where you don't move at all. That's the time when you're in the absolute, in infinity. You're connected to God. And then they said that at this point of time, which is in between here, 10 to the minus 33 centimeters, you are already clicking out. So here you described it, clicked out portion of oscillating energy traversing intermediate dimensions. So when you are clicking out and you're in the infinity, you're coming back and then you're here again. And this is happening to you in your daily life. But when you manage to get your brainwave frequency to go up and down so fast that this time here becomes continuing, you are able to perceive something that is beyond the regular space and time that we are used to see in our life. And you are able to perceive this next dimension, which I believe is the grid. So you're able to enter into this grid, but it depends on your brainwave frequency. Trained meditators are able to access this brainwave frequency through their practices. But the Monroe Institute found another way to induce those states by playing certain audio frequencies that will help you to reach this state. I believe with these hemisync techniques, what they are called, you can reach a similar state as on psychedelics or deep meditation, and it would help us a lot to reprogram our conditioned mind. If you want to have more information about the Monroe Institute, I will leave it in the source. They made some tapes where you can just put your headphones and they will play 2 different frequencies which make your brain to oscillate and become to a certain frequency, which is, according to them, exactly this one that makes you able to leave your body, to tap out from time and space and enter into this other world, which is next to the absolute. It is not completely the absolute, because in the absolute there's no motion, there's nothing moving, so there's nothing, but it's just very close before and after you enter into the absolute. In every oscillation of your brain wave, you're in this state, so they help you to reach that. Okay, I will stop it now because it's getting very dark, and I will continue with the theory tomorrow. So I see you in a bit. Ciao, ciao. Hello. Okay, let's continue with the last part from part 3 of the pixel theory. So I put myself here again. Maybe I have to remove my image a little bit. Just put it over here. And so for the escaping the matrix. With escaping the matrix, it's a little bit misleading. I should have maybe called it escaping the illusion, because you ultimately can never get free of the matrix. You will always be part of it, but your understanding of it can change. So you can understand that you are in the matrix, and by that you can become free of the confinements of it, and eventually you can also step beyond those and go into higher levels or dimensions of consciousness, and you don't have to be trapped only in this 3-dimensional one. And so this is the way what I'm going to try to describe you here, how you can become free from these confinements and see all the different dimensions of consciousness that exist. So during all my experiences of seeing these pixels, I always felt like there is something behind them. I have always tried to look what would come behind the light that is constantly shining at me, but I have never succeeded so far. It is like you are wearing a VR headset and trying to see what's behind the screen. It seemed impossible. But I have understood now that there is a way to overcome this limitation. It is what traditions call ascension into a higher level of spiritual consciousness. This limitation is what spirit has created to be able to perceive this three-dimensional world. Without it, we would not feel the separation of us and the world. We would all be one. There could not be an ego. Then you can see these images again here, this esoteric image where the guy is looking outside of its world. So that is essentially what I'm trying to show you, how to be able to see beyond the stars and start to see this realm that is here behind it. And then this image, I think it's a nice depiction of maybe the entities that might await you there, because there's other conscious beings that are beyond this three-dimensional world, and I believe you can definitely communicate with them. It's not speaking like I'm talking to you right now, but there is a possibility to have communication, and eventually once you break free of these confinements and you become part of everything, you will be connected to every human on Earth, and we will all live in peace together eventually at one point. I hope so. So let me put the picture a bit up here. There are many teachings on how to get rid of the ego. I will give you my visual interpretation of it. Let's say that the normal eyes cannot look beyond the walls of the cube. It is confined to only see the space inside. So you are this eye in the middle of the cube, and you're trying to watch out. All the directions that you can look is to the front, to the back, to the left and the right, and up and down. But you can never look beyond it. So here you can see this again, but imagine that all of those walls would be mirrors. So when you look to the front, all you get to see is the mirror pointing back again to the back side of you. If you're looking to the left, you will just bounce the mirror back to the right, and this right will bounce it back to the left, and it will go back and forth, and it will happen the same with up and down. So you're just going back and forth, but you can never see what's on top of the cube, because once you start to look up, the mirror will point you down, and then the down will point you back up. So you're confined inside this cube. Then put my picture here. So usually we are spinning inside the cube, watching its walls. Normally, you only watch with your 5 senses, which are not able to recognize the underlying grid. So with your smell, your hearing, what you're seeing and touching, this is all confined inside this cube space, and you're constantly spinning through it. You have to use your third eye to be able to perceive it. By consciously using effort to shift your perspective from watching the wall to start watching the corner, you become aware of the motion or spin that you are in. Now let me remove my image completely. I think then it's easier to describe it. So you have this cube here, and normally you're watching always the red parts, which are just the middle of the wall. So you're watching either to the front and the back, or the left and the right, and up and down, and you're watching the red part. And these are constantly bouncing you back and forth, so there's no way to look beyond them, because you're just looking into infinity. Now what I try to tell you, what you have to do is with your third eye, you start to, you just focus on watching only with your third eye, and by that you're looking up to this corner of the cube, or it can be any corner, but let's say it would be this corner of the cube, and then imagine from inside the cube, this corner looks like this. So you're watching the corner of the cube, and then on top of you, kind of as your roof, or the roof of the cube, you would see this one here, and then you would see one wall on the left and one wall on the right. But by focusing on the third eye, you are consciously putting effort to watch exactly at the corner here of the top of the cube or the room that you're seeing. Okay, I can put my image again. Yes. So the smallest red points are the source of the pixels. They are coming from a place infinitely small and are getting bigger and bigger until they reach the full size of the cube. Once they have reached the full size, they create one image for you and then disappear behind you. So you can imagine that this would be the red part of the cube, like this part here. And then from there, the pixels are flying out, and ultimately, once they are in the 100% of their size, they will create this image, and there's 3 of them. So there's for every part of the wall. So from this side, and from the top, they're flying out. And once they reach to your third eye, they will make exactly this image. Well, now it's just a square, but you can imagine this should be the depiction of your whole world. So when you're watching with your eyes right now, this would be everything that you see, and it comes flying from 3 sides, or if you mirror them, 6 sides, but eventually it's just 3, like a triangle, which would be 1 going up, 1 going left, and 1 going right. Now, how to step out. If you're trying to see outside of this cube or behind it, all you can do is look along the axes that you're given. But those axes don't have an end because they curve. It's like trying to see the backside of a sphere. Impossible as long as you're in the 3rd dimension. So whenever you're watching a sphere or a ball, you will only see half of it, exactly half, because the other half is behind it and you're not able to watch it from. Even if you start to turn to this way, then that won't be visible anymore. So you will always just see 180 degrees of the 360 degree sphere, and you will never see everything. Here at the bottom. To truly look beyond the limitations of your vision, you will have to add another dimension, which is impossible to draw, but it would point out from the screen exactly at you. So here in this image, imagine you are the black cube in the bottom, and normally you're just looking out to the front, and there would be the back, to the right and the left, and the top and the bottom. So where I'm asking you to look is exactly at the corner of the cube, which would be then a line that is going 90 degrees to all those 3 axes. I tried to draw here a red line how it could look, but it's not really successful. Then here I just made it kind of, if you're inside this cube and then you're watching the corner here on the back side, then you would see the next cube that is attached to your cube just on the corner, touching it right behind it. And so if you depict this image here, just you shift the angle again, like I did before, to the hexagonal view. So you're still this black cube in the middle, and you have the axis to watch left and right, back and front, and up and down. If you start to look at the corner of the cube, this point, it's still like a long axis going there, but now the only way for me to draw it was to make it a red point, because this line would be going exactly towards you, and it's impossible to depict it in 2D. But imagine if it would be 3D, it would be a line coming out of the computer and going right into your face. And then here you have the same with the hexagonal view. So here it's just the cube on the corner, and there as well, but there you see it as a hexagon. So you have one hexagon that is you, and then you're watching out, and there's the next hexagon, which is another cube that is touching yours. Okay, I have to move my image again here. So you step out from the middle cube, which is the black one, and you usually see in those directions, into the outer front cube, which I now colored in red. So you can imagine that here, if you're looking to the front, and here you're looking to the left, and this is up. So you're going exactly 1 step to the front, 1 step to the left, and up. And there would be a cube inside here, which I colored now here in red. And what I'm asking you to do when you would try to see this grid is to look exactly into the corner, so you would see this cube, which usually should be not possible by your 5 senses, because you are limited to always look only in the 3 dimensions of space. But if you look with your third eye, you are able to watch to the next dimension, which is the 4th one, which is going out here, and it will depict this cube outside. This will allow you to see all other 20 surrounding cubes, 7 black cubes and 20 red cubes, altogether 27. So you have this 3-dimensional plus symbol, so you have here 3 up, 3 in the left and right, and 3 in the back and front. And now I just completed the cube, the bigger one, around it again. So on the bottom you have 3 going 3 and 3 up. So you are still the cube here in the middle, just like before, but now you are able to see all of those red cubes around that you usually wouldn't perceive if you're just watching with your eyes or with your 5 senses. The black ones are still there, but covered by the red ones, same from the front view. So it's like this. This is the plus, you remember, but once I make you to step out and to start to watch the corners of them, it eventually looks like this. You still have the black cube around, but now you are able to see all the red cubes as well. And now you can see already how the grid is starting to build up again. So you're watching out and you're just watching eventually only one cube, the corner of the cube from you. But now you're able to perceive all the other 20 cubes that you couldn't see before that are around it. Going through the heart. Okay, I remove my image up here. This conscious effort to look up into the corner of the cube and then feeling into your heart and becoming that corner will shift your perspective to another eye that hasn't been seen before. This will be the eye in the middle of the Merkaba that I always see when I'm in my experiences. So here you have a depiction from Alex Gray, the psychedelic artist, and I think he drew it perfectly, that once you start to focus, to look with your third eye, you will see a light, and this light is sending out images which are flowing out as a spiral, and they are coming closer and closer and closer to you until eventually they will reach you, the true you, which is inside your heart. So you're watching from the light, it's sending out information as waves, and it's spiraling in the waveform until it reaches to your heart. And you can imagine these things, these two lights, as the two parts of the torus, or the black and the white circle of the yin and yang. So this part is connected with this part, and this is just the flow of the torus that is going out and coming back inside. And then once it reaches here, it has the connection to that one, and it starts to flow out and spiral again. So these two parts are both the same, like the singularity, but from your perspective, they look like two different ones. And then everything inside here, this is our reality. And here you can see the image. It's very simple drawing, but for me, eventually, once I have built the Merkaba and I start to focus on watching the corner of the cube, I always start to see this eye. And then it will happen sometimes that many eyes, like in this image, start to appear in front of me. But ultimately, if you just focus on only the corner of the cube, all those eyes merge and they become into one big eye, the eye that is ultimately my higher self, or God. Okay, I have to remove my image just a bit down. From that eye, you have a wider perspective and are able to see at least 7 other eyes that are part of the same cube. This will often result in seeing eyes everywhere you look and the feeling of being watched. It was extremely scary when it happened to me the first time, but now I know that I'm simply becoming aware of my higher self that is watching itself from all possible angles. So you shift your perspective and you start to see 4-dimensionally. So you don't see only 3 dimensions anymore, to see up, down, left, right, and front and back, but you will see all of those from every direction. So you can imagine as if you would see a cube from every side in the same time. Or this will also give you now the possibility to watch a sphere, a ball, from every angle, 360 degrees, all at once, which before was impossible because we were defined in the 3-dimensional space. Expansion of eye cubes. Let me remove my image a bit here. Maybe I make it smaller. Yes. Okay, let's do it like this. Remember how one dimension can see everything of the previous dimension all at once. Like we have learned in the Dimensions chapter, the dimension that you are in right now can see the whole previous dimension all at once. So here a 2D being can see a line from A to B all at once. So you are this 2-dimensional being and you see this line down here, and you can see every single part of the line, every step, all in the same time. Then we're coming to a 3-dimensional being. This can see a flat surface, A and B, all at once. So you're able to perceive this bottom here, the whole triangle, and you can watch from here till there, till there, till there. Everything of the flat, you see it all at the same time. And then we come to a 4-dimensional being that would see every part of the cube, every side of the cube all at once. So what we usually can only see 3 parts of the cube. If you're a 4-dimensional being, you're watching the left, the right, the top, the bottom, and the front and the back of the cube, everything in the same time. To become 4-dimensional, we have to step out of our limitation to the next higher layer. This will allow us to see our 3-dimensional world from every angle all at the same time. How to? Let's see my image. It's not in the way. Maybe I can be here on the bottom and a little bit bigger. Okay. So, how to? Step number 1. Eye that can see all 6 walls of the cube. So you start to realize that you're this eye and you're inside the cube. Then step number 2, the eye starts to see its limitations. So you start to realize that however long you look in the 6 directions of space, so left, right, front, back, and up and down, you are always just watching the wall like a mirror, and you will never be able to see an end because it's infinite, bouncing back and forth. Step number 3. Eye starts to shift by using the third eye, perspective, and going into the heart, expanding its view to be able to see the whole previous dimension all at once. So what you should do is you shift your perspective from being inside the cube to every corner of the cube, and you have then become the whole cube, and you can watch with eyes from all 8 sides. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 around the cube, and you're able to watch from outside the cube every wall and every corner into the inside of the cube. Then step number 4, remove my image. Like this, consciousness has stepped out of its old limitation and became the next higher layer, or the higher self. So when you're in this state that you are all the corners of the cube, you stepped to the next higher layer, the next higher dimension. Then number 5, but it has again created the walls of limitation for itself. So now you have all of those eyes and you're able to watch inside the cube, and you can see all the walls of the cube at the same time, but those eyes that are pointing in this direction will create new walls. They will look like this. So this process can go on forever, as there's always one being above the other one, and there will always be the possibility to exceed your limitation to the next higher level. So once you did that step, that you are watching 4-dimensional, you have a new limitation, which is this bigger cube that I drew here. So now you can realize again that you're actually watching, you can see everything inside, but once you try to look outside, you're just watching this wall. So you're looking again left and right, up and down, back and front. And it will limit yourself again to see the next higher level, the next higher layer, but at least you're able to see everything from the cube inside that you had before. So then in step number 7, you realize again you are confined by these walls, and then you look at the corner of the cube. So you start to look again out in the middle here, and from the middle you become all eyes and each corner of the cube. So you're outside here again, and that will have given you the possibility again to watch this bigger cube from every side all at once. I have tried to simplify this concept a lot to make it more or less understandable without going too much into detail. It was very difficult to make a description simple, so I have decided to make a part 2 in which I will describe this process more in detail and with better images. So if I make a pixel theory part 2, then I will try to describe this even more in detail, because I have a lot of research done on my papers, drawings, and whatever, but I felt like if I give you all of this information right now, it will be all overwhelming. So I prefer to just keep it simple and show you this part right now, and then in the next part, if you're really interested, I can show you the next step on, or the more detailed step on how this actually works. Okay, let me move up here. To be able to go through your heart and become the higher self or the next layer of consciousness, you have to stop being you. Leave your ego and mind behind and become the thing that always exists. Become the thing that listens to the things that your mind is saying. Become pure perception without judgment or categorization. Go through the singularity of the torus field and become the other side. It feels a bit like you're stepping out of your body and becoming your whole surrounding. So you can imagine that you are meditating and you're sitting here, and then through your heart you spiral out as a torus, and you will become this whole bigger torus that you can see around this person, and then eventually you follow the spiral back inside and you end up at yourself again. I have not been able to reach and maintain that state myself yet, as it is extremely difficult to let go of thought and the mind. But I know that through intense meditation and a clear mind and heart, you can completely let go of all things and only be. When all connections of the ego and thoughts have been disbanded, I believe you make a complete realization of the fact that you are the thoughts as well as the surroundings itself. This realization will cause a drastic shift in your relationship to life. If you come to understand that you are not only one person in a body, but also the earth that this person is walking on, the family and friends that the person is speaking to, and everything that has ever existed and will ever exist, you will have a very different approach to life itself. So now I come to my conclusion. I have two conclusions, but this is the first one. So what I have learned so far is that each of us living conscious beings is one perspective or angle from this all-creating being. And only through us it can experience itself in a new way that it has never seen before. If you understand the structure of consciousness, you can interact with it in a much deeper way. This gives rise to the possibility of telepathy, telekinesis, maybe even teleportation, and other psychic skills that have been deemed impossible by our society. If you truly awaken to the real nature of your being, you will reach the next level of consciousness and be able to transcend into higher realms of existence. This seems to be the ultimate goal of most Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. You don't need any drug or conscious expanding substance to be able to have an experience like that. But if you are as stuck in your body and the system as I was, it clearly helps to shake you up a little bit. And here you have a beautiful image where you could see universal consciousness in the form of these geometry with the eyes, and how it puts on a mask, and this mask can be the representation of your body, or how I called it sometimes, the VR headset that you can put up. So universal consciousness is putting on three-dimensional form in the form of your body, your eyes, your ears, your nose and mouth, and your hands to interact with this space. And through that, it is seeing itself, but it is seeing this three-dimensional world that it can touch and see and smell and everything. And through us, it has this experience of life. But ultimately, we are all this universal consciousness, these eyes here behind it, and these are just one. There is no multiples of those. It is just one, and it is looking through every single one of us in the same time, having the experience of life. And the mask is kind of like the separation, so that makes us believe that we are only this person, this body, experiencing this world for ourselves. But when we go back into our true origin of what we really are, we realize that we are this underlying thing that has created the whole surrounding to be able to watch itself. Now, conclusion number 2. What effects can this have in real life? By programming your Merkaba correctly and waking up to your true self, you will be able to design your life in a way that is healthy for you. So what I mean with programming your Merkaba is you become conscious of this star tetrahedron, the Merkaba that you have around you, and that you are existing in the cube. And once you are really conscious and knowing that you're in the cube, you, because you are creating everything around you as well, are able to manipulate those things. And I think this is what we call manifestation. So then you can attract those things into your life that you need. You can have a healthier relationship to your surroundings, to the people around you and your environment. So you will be able to manifest things that you wouldn't have thought were possible before, and your interactions with your surroundings will become more intentional, sensitive, and intense. Overall, you can change your whole being and reality. Also, by changing your perspective, you might let go of things like materialistic goods, because you realize that nothing of that will help you to grow further spiritually, and in the end will not have any meaning when you die. It will also benefit the environment, because you will start to see things from the other person's side, or animal or plant, and will become more empathic, so you are less likely to harm or hurt other beings. And it might help to fight deep-rooted inner traumas that you have been carrying inside of you since you are young. Eventually, it can even heal your body and enhance your physical skills. But more to this in the next video. Oh, I just go down here. Yes, so ultimately, the best real-world outcome will be love and peace for and from everything. 1. Love is the most important factor on the path of this discovery. If you want to use it with ego, you will only harm yourself. But if you connect with this field, you usually understand immediately that you are part of everything and there is no separation between you and the world. So all good things you do to the world, you do to yourself. 2. If everyone gets to realize the true nature of being, understanding that we are actually all one, we would immediately stop to fight wars, because we understand that we ultimately only hurt ourselves. There wouldn't be the need for laws or the police, because everybody would know that when they harm others, they harm themselves. And if they do good to others, they do good to themselves. So this ultimate message is just love, because all the love that you are sending out, you are also receiving back in. And that is eventually what everybody is looking for, to love, to give love and to receive love, instead of spreading hatred and war, and then we will receive that back. So love yourself and love all your surroundings. Now, a friendly reminder that you are reality. If you think and feel love, you will receive it back. So yeah, love is the ultimate message of this pixel theory. I will continue a little bit more in detail in the next part 2 of the full pixel theory, but for now, if you have any thoughts about it, feel free to write me. If you think you have anything that you could improve or add to this theory, please let me know, and I'll try to add it either still in this one, or eventually if I make the new one, I will try to add your opinion to it. So thank you very much for staying here with me for this time. I hope it was interesting enough you could stay until the end. And now there are just the sources, which I'm not gonna read everything to you here, but if you're interested and in any of these things, I can really recommend you. The Flower of Life book got me started on that, and then eventually we can also have some experiences together. So if you would like to see something of those things with me, then yeah, get in touch with me and let's see if we can go on the journey together. So thank you very much, and I wish you a nice day, nice evening. See you soon. Ciao, ciao. Hey, also I wanted to add that the best way to start your transformation is by activating your Merkaba. There's a meditation called Merkaba meditation, and with that you can realize the structure that is around your body and your spirit, and you can start to make it spin. And with that you can start to understand who you are and how the universe works. And because the Merkaba, it's the vehicle of light that you use to travel through these higher dimensions. So once you have activated that, you will be able to go into other places, be protected, and you can bring back information and learn a lot of things from higher realms, so higher dimensions. For me, it was really difficult in the beginning to do normal meditations. I had a hard time to focus and I was distracted very easy. But once I started to do the Merkaba meditation, I had a clear script to follow. There are 17 or 18 breaths that you have to do. and then you activate your Merkaba. And then after that, it was also much easier to do my regular meditation, because I felt I was already very deep, very profound, connected to myself. And once this happened, I felt like now I can just sit and try to focus on the moment, on the now, and be here and be present. So if you're interested to learn how to activate your Merkaba, I will leave a link in the description of a YouTube video that has it very clear, and they describe it really good on how to activate it. Or if you want to know the information more in detail, just read the book of the Flower of Life. In the part number 2, they describe it perfectly how you activate your Merkaba. I'm also gonna make a video that will explain how to make the Merkaba, and I'm working on a step-by-step guide that will tell you exactly how to create the Merkaba and how to make it spin. So if you're interested in doing that, you can also just get in touch with me, and I explain it to you, and I send you this material so you can start to do it yourself. So yes, thank you for watching this video. I hope the information was useful for you, and I wish you a nice day. Ciao, ciao.